What's up, Crazy What's Family? Today we're with Annie, and she is working with individuals with disabilities, but she's all the way in Guatemala, and they also have employment opportunities over there. So she's going to tell us a little bit about what she does and introduce herself.
Hi everyone. Hola. My name's Annie. I'm originally from Seattle, Washington, but now I live in Antigua, Guatemala, and I'm working with an organization, like Ben said, that employs adults with disabilities.
That's awesome. So how did this come about? Is this an organization you started? You just work with them, or how did it all come about? What's the history?
That's true. I am the co-founder of this organization. So in 2018, I met my now husband, and he is from Guatemala, and we were long distance for a while, but he and I both had the same vision. Um, I was a special education teacher, and I always used to just really dream about something bigger and having opportunities that were more accessible for people with disabilities after they turn 21 and they're not able to receive education support, in the public school system.
Yeah.
And my partner is in Guatemala and also just felt really passionate about adults with disabilities and how they get less support or there's less services available. So we had this idea and we decided to start an organization where we are making the products or making a job for people with disabilities. So, just to give you a little bit of context, in Guatemala, there aren't any job programs or like job coaching programs. There's also no legislation that protects people with disabilities and ensures that they have access to work.
Oh wow.
Yeah, it's pretty bleak. Um, and so, in the United States, obviously, the best possible opportunity is to find an existing job in a company or something alongside the interests of whoever is looking for the job, whether they have a disability or not. But in Guatemala, there just aren't those job opportunities. They're not likely to be open. So we started an organization and we're working with people who have intellectual disabilities primarily, and they are hand making beeswax candles. They're making essential oil products, body scrubs, just a different, like a line of wellness products that are pretty um, high quality. They're really beautiful. They're really like attention grabbing. And so my husband and I, or our organization, we manage all of the marketing. We manage all of the branding. We make sure that the product is, getting into a market where people are interested.
Hmm.
But we're working with now 14 people with intellectual disabilities who make those products.
Awesome.
And then 100% of our sales, or the profit on sales, just minus the cost of taxes in Guatemala and the cost of raw materials. But the bulk of the sales is the profit, and that goes directly to their salaries. And now they are all earning about 3 times more than minimum wage in Guatemala.
That is awesome because I know over here in the States, we have a problem with getting paid less at our jobs. So there's
Yeah.
legislation about that right now. So maybe they can take lessons from you guys and they can learn something about how to change our wages. So what is the biggest impact you feel that someone with a disability has had working with your organization? Like have go talk is there anybody that's been like down and depressed or down about their situation and because they work with you you've seen improvement in the way they act and the way the things they do? Have they become more independent, and what does that look like for you guys? what's a story
Yeah.
what's a story you could tell around that?
Honestly, I would love for, all of the people that I work with to be present in this conversation so that I'm not speaking for them and so that they can, be here to like share their own stories in their own form. Um, we do work with a lot of people who are nonverbal, but they are still very communicative, and I always want to keep them in the front when they're sharing us their stories. But I do have permission to share a lot of these stories, and honestly, Ben, that is something that we have seen again and again. Um, we work with several people who never got to go to school. They never got to go to therapy.
Oh no,
Honestly, it sounds so intense, but it's the reality for a lot of people with disabilities in Guatemala that they just never leave their homes. Um, and then when they're able to come into a community like Eden, that's the name of our organization, and work and make friends and do social events, and we have different like collaborations with yoga or music therapy. They get all these opportunities for enrichment. It really is transformative. I know a woman in our group, her name is Iris, and she was 29 when she started working with us, and it was the first time she had ever met another person with disabilities.
wow,
Yeah, because she never got to leave the house. And now you can really tell how much she loves working or being with the group. She has like distinct friendships. She really comes out of her shell. She's really developed a lot more independence. And so those are like some transformative changes that you see when people have access to a salary. People have access to dignifying work that they're interested in, and people have access to like friendship and community.
that's awesome. So when it comes to selling the products, do you guys let the individuals go with you, like in the towns or whatever, to sell the products, or do you guys do it yourself?
We try to get them out as much as possible. We really try to keep them on the center focus of this work. So, yes, when we sell at farmers markets, which we do every week, we take turns, and all of our participants, we have a calendar, and they know what day they're going to sign up for to go work at a farmer's market. And that's, also paid work. When we do deliveries, when we have direct orders with individuals or we're delivering into stores, we also bring one of them with us. Again, everyone gets one
Yeah.
turn, and that about once a month. Um, I will clarify. I do want to make sure this is clear. They're not working full time or really
No.
even technically part time.
Okay.
They're all working about 2 to 3 times a month, and then we also have social events and like um, you know, enrichment opportunities, so that they're coming to Eden at least once a week, but they're only working maybe 2 or 3 times a month, so once a week.
Okay, so what's the farthest they travel, and what does transportation look like for them?
That really is the biggest barrier for us. It is a constant conversation. Um, Transportation is really challenging in Guatemala. Like, you have to understand there isn't any accessibility in Guatemala. To begin with, there's no special education, but there's also no accessible buses. There's no like wheelchair accessible sidewalks, or there's not really any wheelchair accessible buildings outside of our own site at Eden. And so families either have to have a car to transport their family members, or they have to take the bus, or they have to hire what's called a tuk tuk. It's like a little, it's like a three-wheeled like bicycle car.
Yeah,
um,
I've heard of them before.
yeah, and so that is prohibitive to some families. It's challenging, um, and so we have to really talk to them and help them budget of the money that they earn. They have to save part of it for their transportation.
Oh wow.
But quite a few of our families travel about half an hour to come in. So they half an hour in, half an hour out.
Okay. So do you guys teach them money management as well? Is that part of what you guys do?
I wouldn't say formally, no, but it's a conversation we try to have with all of our participants. We call them entrepreneurs because they are the artisans making the products. Um, So we try to talk with them and help them like understand that they have to give some of the money they earn back to their parents to pay for their bus routes. So we talk about it, but I wouldn't say that we do any like formal instruction on money management.
That's awesome. Does any of them have the desire to come to the States or want to work in the States?
I don't think I've ever asked.
That would be pretty awesome to ask them if they have the desire. I would be curious to ask them what would it be like. What do they think it would be like to come to the States and work, or see what we deal with in the disability world over here.
I would that would be such a dream. Honestly, that would be a dream come true.
Well, maybe for another episode we can get one of your individuals on or something, or we can do something once a month where I interview a different person.
I would love that. That would be honestly really exciting for all of us.
Yeah, so do you guys have like churches and stuff that you guys work with or organizations, or how does that work as far as getting help from over here? Is it all just in Guatemala?
No, so Eden, our organization, is technically a nonprofit
Okay.
because the sales that are generated only cover the salaries of our participants. There's so many other expenses that aren't covered by those sales. So like we do social events, we do enrichment activities. We have to cover our own like utility bills,
Yeah.
paper. The list goes on and on, right? So the bulk of those costs come from our fundraising in the United States because we are a 501c3 or a nonprofit status in the US
Okay.
and in Guatemala.
Yeah.
So we're able to receive funding from the US and then apply it to our work here.
Oh, cool.
Mhm.
So, what would you say? Because I know over here in the States that a lot of parents with disabilities, some of them have a hard time when they age out or when they get older. They have a hard time with them working or wanting to go to work, and they get confused or they don't know what to do. So, what's the biggest thing that you think that your parents' constituents they've learned about themselves, and how have they learned that their child or individual can progress, if that makes sense?
It does. I think that's a really beautiful question. Um, well, first, I think the context that we're in is quite different from the states because we're working with people who never got to go to school until they were 21. So it's not that they're experiencing a drop off of support and services and growth. It's kind of like this lack, and we have really had to do a lot of community education with the families around independence and allowing them to leave the house, do a new activity, spend time with friends, even if their moms are just one room over, allowing them to be separate from their moms, just a little space,
Cool.
has been a challenge that has taken years.
Yeah.
And we've gotten there, and now we're seeing just like big changes. We see so much more like authenticity in their friendships. They're having a lot more fun. They're really enjoying their work a lot more without their parents present. And then their parents are also realizing that too. So I
Yeah.
think here, the families and the entrepreneurs that we work with are learning that having some independence is just enriching their lives and making it like possible for them to develop their own interests and friendships.
Yeah.
And I also think the parents are have been like learning to accept their abilities as they are and getting to a point where they're no longer like pushing for when is he going to start speaking? You
Yeah.
know, when is he going to start doing this? Why aren't you working on this? At some point, they're starting to accept this is the way that he communicates and it's not verbal and we can still interact. They're learning to accept their abilities as they are.
That's awesome. So have you guys played a part in communication? Because I know you said that you're working on communication devices. So have you helped the family with that? And have you really opened their eyes to the way that they can communicate? Have you changed the outlook that they see on that as well?
We don't really have a lot of access to traditional communication devices, but we have started to, I guess, over the years, we've shown the families a few different ways to embrace communication. So, like, we'll often make a picture menu of our options. So, if we're choosing what to eat and we're giving one person a turn to decide, I might pull out a picture menu that has a picture of pizza or like chicken or hamburgers or whatever it is. And
Yeah,
I'll let them point to the image and choose. And so there's some really easy um, strategies that some of our families had never thought of or never seen. Um, we we have like a big chore wheel and we move it around, and so every time that our participants come in, they have to find their photo, find their chore. And so we definitely are trying to show families that there's a lot of ways that you can support communication that's not verbal. And I think that it's a small step because we just don't have access to technology like some people could really use. um, but it's still helping to open people's minds a little bit.
that's awesome. So, what does it look like when somebody goes to join the organization, and what is that conversation like, and how do you guys begin that process?
At this point, we do have a wait list, and we have an intake form. We are a pretty small organization because of our funding that we've been able to receive from the U.S. We're limited, and so it's just my partner and I that are providing all of the services. So because there's just two of us, our own time is limited. Um, and if we were able to grow significantly in funding, we would be able to maybe hire somebody to take on a job that we're currently doing.
Okay.
And then we could, bring in more people with disabilities as well. But as of right now, we just do have limitations with our time and our funding. So we've been pretty capped. So we have 14 participants who work with us right now.
Okay.
And we have a few people, I think 4 people on the wait list. Um, but yeah, when people come reach out to us, we just have an intake form. We tell them, we don't have space right now. We have a wait list, but we do social events once a month. And we invite anybody and everybody with a disability to those. Um, so we'll have a big party with like piñata, some food, some games, just for a couple hours. And anybody who has a disability who's, over 18 or under 18, it doesn't matter. We just have an open house. And those are a lot of fun because we get to, we get to expand our community, even though we can't expand the people who are like working and employed right now.
Yeah.
Um, but I will tell you, I had mentioned this. In October, we decided to expand our programming and we launched a new line of work. And so now, outside of handcrafting our products, we have another group of 5 people who go out and they work in reforestation nearby. And so they're planting seeds until the seeds become seedlings. And that was just another opportunity for us to be able to bring in more people off of our wait list and find more opportunities for them, and also give people the chance now to choose between 2 different projects and find what they prefer or what they're interested in.
About how long is that waiting list?
Only 4 people right now.
No, I mean, but how? No, I'm sorry. How long is the time limit? How long they gotta wait before they get off the waiting list?
Honestly, it is challenging because we don't know. So um, we're hoping this year in 2025 that we can bring in another 2 people off of our wait list. But really, we're able to bring people in as our funding grows.
That's cool. The
So
reason why I
it's
asked is
unknown.
because oh, I'm sorry I cut you off, but the reason why I asked is because I was in a film called 6,000 Waiting, and it was about the Medicaid waiver. And there's like at the time there were like 6,000 people on the waiting list, and now there's over 7,000. So I just want to get that comparison based on over there in your program based on the states, because the Medicaid waiver to get services over here, there's over 7,000 people. So I
Oh,
just
that's
want to give
horrible.
people a comparison of what it's like, and just
Yeah, I mean, our organization is so small, so it seemed like comparing it to Medicaid is pretty big jump. But um but yeah, there's just so few services available in Guatemala
Yeah.
that when people find us and they think it's a good fit, we definitely want to get them in as much as we possibly can.
Well, it's very awesome what you guys are doing, and I just wanted to put you on the podcast to give people an understanding of what it's like in other countries versus over here in the United States, because you don't hear much about people having those services in other countries and the way that they live and the things they do.
Yeah, I'm gonna be honest. It's really, I know about the struggles in the United States, and I would never diminish that because it's pretty bad. And
Yeah.
a lot of the, like, especially the legislation that affect people with disabilities, it's so controlling. Um, and also where I'm living now in Guatemala, it's difficult as well because the government is not providing any services, any Medicaid, any financial benefits or health benefits. Um, and so it's all dependent on how supportive or involved or um, capable,
Yeah.
that person's family is in order to find them the resources they need. And
Wow.
that's just really unfortunate because then it becomes the luck of the draw, you know.
Yeah. What do you think a legislator would say in Guatemala if you came to them and you showed them something from the States and then you had this idea? What would they say? Would they be willing to support people or would they not be willing to do it?
You know what? That is such a good question and such a challenge because I really never have even thought about um, trying to change or systems or even inspire um, like legislative changes. And I think that is a pretty exciting thought.
And I have
I have
ways,
no idea.
I'm thinking of ways that you guys can expand what you're doing and get it out to the world, especially in Guatemala. I think we have some things that I can do because I'm very creative and think about different ways to help people. So
Thank you.
I have some ways that we can expand what you guys are doing. So yeah, I think that what you guys are doing is great. So where do you want the organization to be in the next 5 years? If you could do anything, where do you see it going?
I'd really like us to just hit a point of sustainability where we are able to access some bigger grants that allow us to hire some Guatemalan directors. So that's my goal in the next 5 years. I'd like our organization to get to a point where it's not dependent on myself and my husband as the founders,
Okay.
but there's actually maybe a staff of 3 people who are all Guatemalan and can, you know, manage the administration and the leadership and the projects, because I think that is the most sustainable future. But in order to get there, I think I need to really invest in finding grants or bigger donors. But that's my goal. That's my vision, is getting to the point where I can trust that this organization, Eden, can live on for a long time under local leadership and local directors.
That's awesome. And I think the way to do that, we need to get some legislation involved and teach the
Yeah,
legislature over there
it's
about what's going
honestly a
on.
good idea. Yeah,
Yeah,
it is a good idea.
get them involved and I have some ways that we can do that. I think that would really help. And as I wrap this up, what is the most impactful thing that you want people to know about your organization that may have never heard about you, never heard about what you're doing in Guatemala?
Wow, if I could leave people with one takeaway about our organization, I would I would just want um, people to see that regardless of the person's disability or language or education or access to different resources, that everyone has such incredible gifts and interests. And I think that if if people can remember that working with someone with a disability not isn't just about finding them a job, but it's also about finding them a job that they enjoy, you know? And
It's all about humanity connection is what I like to call it.
yeah, and just like remembering that everyone has so many hidden skills and interests, you know?
That's awesome. What is the biggest um, hidden talent or something that you found working with somebody with a disability after they got to get out and do something?
Hmm. Um, I don't know. I think there's so many. Everyone seems to have like their different little surprise gifts and skills that they bring to the table. So I don't know
That's
if I could
awesome.
nail it down.
That's awesome. So, how can people help your organization in the United States?
I would love it if your followers and your listeners would be open to following us on Instagram.
Okay.
Our Instagram is at Eden, and then there's an underscore por salud, PORSALUD. It means for wellness.
Okay.
Um, but yeah, that would be a really big push for us. We're really trying to increase our social media so that we can also create more exposure and create a platform for our participants with disabilities to share their own stories and their own,
Okay. If you send me that link to the Instagram, I will put it in the description of the video
I will. Thank you so much.
so that we can all see what's going on. It was great talking to you, and I'm looking forward to getting you out there and helping your organization grow through this podcast. And is there anything you want the listeners to know, or anything you want to say to them as we wrap this up?
Well, first off, thank you so much for having me. It's been such a blessing and an opportunity. And then to all of your listeners, I just want to say the future is inclusive. Let's go.
Let's take it worldwide, eh?
Yeah.
All right. Well, it's great talking to you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ben.